Hello and welcome to another episode of The Word for Kids. I'm Jaymie and I'm guiding you through the books of Joshua, Judges, and Ruth in a series of 20 episodes. Last time we continued to talk about the Israelites crossing the Jordan River on dry ground. One leader from each of the 12 tribes chose a rock from the middle of the river and carried it on his shoulder to Gilgal, the place where they camped that night. And Joshua stood these 12 stones up as a memorial of what God had done for the people. The people had the Passover and ate from the land of Canaan for the first time, and that's where we left off last time. Are you ready for today's adventure? Let's go. Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." Does this remind you of anything? The same thing happened to Moses with the burning bush in Exodus. God was again showing that he was with Joshua as he led the Israelites, just as he had been with Moses when he led them. Now, the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. This just means they were locked up tight. No one went in or out. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up, everyone straight in." So Joshua commanded the army to do as the Lord had said. When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The army guard marched around ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time the trumpets were sounding, but Joshua had commanded the army, "Do not give a war cry. Do not raise your voices. Do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the army returned to the camp and spent the night there. They did this again the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th days, just as God had told Joshua. On the 7th day, they got up and marched around the city in the same way, except that day they marched around it 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priests sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. All the silver and gold, and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord, and must go into his treasury." Let's pause here quickly for today's word of the day.
The word of the day is devote. To give all or a large part of one's time or resources to a person, activity, or cause. The Hebrew term refers to the irrevocable giving over of things or persons to the Lord, or simply said, giving something or someone completely over to the Lord for his purposes. Devote.
When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and the wall collapsed or fell down, so everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. I know, that part is sad. But Joshua told the spies to go in and spare Rahab and those with her, as they had promised. So the spies kept their oath and brought Rahab and all of her family to a place outside the city. Joshua spared her and her family because she had spared the Israelite spies, and Rahab's family continued to live among the Israelites. They burned the city of Jericho and everything in it, but put the gold, silver, bronze, and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. Joshua pronounced an oath. Cursed before the Lord is anyone who undertakes to rebuild this city Jericho. The Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. And that's where our story ends for today. It's time for our verse to remember. Today's verse is Deuteronomy 27:10. Obey the Lord your God and follow his commands and decrees that I give you today. One more time. Obey the Lord your God and follow his commands and decrees that I give you today. Deuteronomy 27:10. That's all the time we have for today, but until next time, remember to do as our verse reminds us and obey God's commands. I can't wait to see you again soon for another episode of The Word for Kids.